There are seasons of history. There's seasons of nature, there's seasons of your life, and there's seasons of history. And if you live long enough, 80 years or more, you're probably gonna live all 4 seasons. Good times create weak people. Weak people create bad times. Bad times create strong people. Strong people create great times. That's where we're heading. Every person I meet is superior to me. I know that every person in this room has life experience I don't have, so you're gonna be superior to me to something. I also know I'm superior to every person I meet in some context, because I've spent 46 years of my life obsessed, constantly improving, all over the earth, working with the greatest, smartest people on earth, and I have to be an idiot not to learn from them. Therefore, we're equal. Therefore, I treat people that way. And I think if you can have that kind of respect, that means we could agree to disagree. We can have a different point of view. I don't take a political stand. And I worked with Clinton. I remember this is the way the world used to be. I worked with President Clinton, which, by the way, he didn't have an email account. I introduced him to AOL when we started doing email. This crazy president of the United States didn't have it. That shows you how much the world has changed. You have more power in your pocket than he had as president back then. And then I went across the aisle on the same day and had a conversation with Gingrich. And I was helping both of them because I'm an independent. I voted on both sides of the aisle. I don't believe in dogma. I believe in the right people. And I also believe that everybody wants the same thing, right? We all want the same thing. Mm-hmm. The only thing we disagree about is the how, right? Everybody wants safety for their children. Some people think you should have guns to do it. Some people should have no guns to do it, right? But we all want safety for our kids and for each other. And we lose track of what's there when we start to demonize. And I had the privilege of interviewing Mr. Gorbachev years and years ago. And I'm gonna answer your question in a roundabout way, but I think the story will help just for a second, if I may, and then I'll answer your question very directly as well. I got a call from Bush Sr., this is not George W., but his dad, and he's president of the United States, and I'd met him a couple times, and I get this phone call, and I was, 30, 31 years old, and he says, Tony, he said, we're having this meeting, and the wall had just come down, and he said, we're going to get together with Mr. Mitterrand from France, Maggie Thatcher from the UK, myself, Mr. Gorbachev, and 100 other people to say, where does the world go now that the walls come down? Now the communism is, on the run, what can we make happen? And he said, we've picked people from different walks of life we think are brilliant, and you've been selected as one of those people. And I was like completely blown away. And then I said, will I do it? Of course I'll do it. I'm happy to come, it's a privilege. And then he said, I was looking at your calendar. Are you doing an event in New York, right? But he told me the dates. And I said, yes. And he goes, well, do you have a plane? And I said, yeah, I had a charter plane in those days. I didn't own it. And he said, well, Mr. Gorbachev's in New York as well. How would you like to fly him to the event since you both come from New York? I said, let me pause for 0.2 seconds, see whether I want to do that or not. I'm a history buff. I want to know what changes history. So I said, absolutely. I said, how many people does he have? So I discovered I had to charter a Gulfstream in those days, which was a big investment, but I was like, oh, it'll be worth it. And I said, one request, can you ask Mr. Gorbachev, could I ask him 3 questions on camera for these kids who I sponsor their college education, to have a world leader talk to them? It'd be pretty amazing. No problem. So I get to the day and 4 limousines pull off and Gorby comes out with his big scar and he walks up and he does not look happy. And I got the camera guy right there for the 3 quick questions. He shakes my hand and I said, we're going to do the interview. He goes, yeah. And I was like, and he just got on the plane. And so I turned to his guys and he goes, he's really sorry, but he has a massive migraine headache and he's not going to do the video. And I'm like, holy shit. In those days, 50 grand for a charter was a lot of money for me. I was like, holy crap, I'm going on this plane. And then I get on the plane, it's like, I want to know when into the Cold War. And he closes his eyes. I'm like, holy shit, this whole thing is not working well. So I started talking to his wife, because I figured if I talk to her enough, she'll say something. Every man wants to contradict his wife. At some point, it'll show up. So I started asking about the change from Soviet Union to Russia and how they were treating Mr. Gorbachev. And sure enough, he said something and his eyes popped open, and the interpreter starts telling me what he's saying. And I said, well, Mr. Gorbachev, so great to be able to talk to you. I said, I know you're not feeling well. I just have one question before you close your eyes. I want to know what ended the Cold War. It's the most important change in the last century, where 2 countries could touch a button and destroy the whole planet. And you were one of the people that ended it. I'm like, no, what? And he looked at me and then started talking in this sing-songy tone. When someone has told you something or told many people the same thing, sometimes they get a little sing-song, they've told it before. And what he said was, it was the end of demonization. So I feel just as strongly about some things you do, but demonization is not the answer, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And you just demonized everybody. I'm not making you wrong. I'm just saying we all do it. I've done it. So we all do it. But he said it was the end of demonization. So what does that mean? He goes, well, Mr. Gorbachev or Mr. Reagan was saying that we're the evil empire. And, I was telling him, no, capitalism is evil. And I said, well, I really appreciate the answer, sir. But I said, I want to know the moment. History changes in a moment. There's a moment of decision that changes anybody's life. I want to know what the moment was that the Cold War ended. And he paused for a long time. He said, no one's ever asked me that. The interpreter tells me as he says it. I said, well, I want the answer. I said, only 3 more hours on the plane if you don't give it to me, right? And I got him laughing a little bit. And he closed his eyes for a little bit. He thought for a little. He was really thoughtful. And then he said, I'll never forget. He started hitting his leg like this. And then I realized he's laughing like out of control, like he had too much vodka or something, right? He goes, I will tell you. He spoke in English. I will tell you, he says in English. And then he started talking in Russian really fast. And the guy interpreted, he said, Reagan and I were together and we're having this argument. And he was lecturing me on the evils of communism. And I said to him, you are not my teacher and I am not your student and you will not speak to me this way. And I told him how evil capitalism was. And he said, in the middle of this argument, he said, I got so mad. He said, I felt my face burning. I was so angry. And he said, all of a sudden, Mr. Reagan stood up and said, this is not working. He took 2 steps away and went back and went, let's start fresh, shall we? My name's Ron. Are you Mikhail? Right? And he said, you had to love the guy. He goes, this is a man I could do business with. And then he said that Reagan did something that Reagan would never normally do because he demonized. He brought a group of, I think it was 50 American children over and let Gorbachev take them around the Soviet Union, which then became Russia. And he said, that touched my heart. Now, I asked Reagan years later, the moment the Cold War ended. He gave me a similar situation, but not the same moment. They were in Reykjavik and they were negotiating over the first destruction of long-range nuclear weapons. And he said he was talking to Gorbachev and it was getting more and more heated. And as he described it, he said, Gorbachev, you knew he was mad because his whole face, the top of his head gets red, including that scar. And he said he was getting more and more angry. And Reagan all of a sudden said, why don't we go on a walk? And I guess Gorbachev's response was, is he crazy? He was something like that through his interpreter. And he goes, no, let's just go on a walk. He goes, it's freezing out. Let's go on a walk. Think of the genius of this. They're sitting across like this, fighting. Yeah. Now all of a sudden they get up, put on their coats. That's changing their whole state. All your decisions are controlled by your state, your mental, emotional state. You want to perform at a different level, you need a different state. You're in a lousy state, you're going to snap at people over nothing, right? So they changed state, and now they're walking outside in the freezing cold. That'll change your state, side by side. And on that walk, they made the first agreements to destroy long-range nuclear weapons in the history of the world. So moments can change, but it doesn't come, in my experience, from demonization, even if you feel something's unjust, because I think a lot of things you're saying have validity to them potentially in terms of the cover-ups and the misinformation and miscommunication, and we've certainly seen that with Twitter, thanks to Elon, so I'm grateful. Answer your question, who do I respect? I respect a lot of people. I respect people on both sides of the aisle. I vote on both sides of the aisle. But I'd say right now, I think DeSantis, because I live in Florida, we only had 2 weeks of shutdown in the whole state. We don't wear masks. Our numbers, we're supposed to have the most deaths. We have the most old people. We don't. We're better than New York or California in our ratios. He made the monoclonal antibodies available to people, so there were early solutions that were available. He's taken on tough decisions. No one's going to be the same with all your political views, but I think he's a leader. To me, a politician is someone who looks to see what everybody says and then says what they want to say. A leader does what's right. And if they're really effective, they'll become popular. Maybe they won't, but they'll be willing to make those decisions. So he'd be one person that I can tell you right now, but there are many people in the private sector, many people that I respect from every walk of life. My view is this: every person I meet is superior to me, and I'm not phony and I'm not inferior. I know that every person in this room has life experience I don't have, so you're going to be superior to me to something. I don't know if it's sing better than I do or dance. I can't do either one of those things. Or it's something you do with math, or it's something I don't know, but I'm sure there's something. You might be better at being depressed than I am too. So that's possible too. I don't want that. People are better at something. So because everyone is superior to me because they have different life experience, I respect everybody. I also know I'm superior to every person I meet in some context because I've spent 46 years of my life obsessed, constantly improving all over the earth, working with the greatest, smartest people on earth. And I have to be an idiot not to learn from them. So it's not that I'm so smart, it's just that I've had a unique life experience. And so in my area, I'm superior. Therefore, we're equal. Therefore, I treat people that way. And I think if you can have that kind of respect, that means we could agree to disagree. We can have a different point of view. I have lots of friends that have very different, let's say, political views than I may have, but we still get along. It's not like where we are today where you can't talk to somebody or you feel unsafe if someone has a different point of view. That is the most insane and stupid thing I've ever heard in my life. And our kids are being taught that bullshit. Right? So I'm not here to make a political statement, but the only way we get better is we respect each other. We find